Earth, Yang Bei, the king of Chinese music, died of a sudden cerebral hemorrhage at the concert, leaving the entire entertainment industry in silence. Blue Star, on his wife's birthday, Yang Bei happily made a cake for her with his own hands. Unexpectedly, the first love that hurt her the most suddenly appeared, and as they walked out of the restaurant, Yang Bei suddenly had a cerebral hemorrhage. The next day, news of Yang Bei's domestic violence, excessive gambling, eating soft food, and She Ya's divorce spread throughout the internet. For a moment, the original pair of golden boys and jade girls became a complete joke for everyone. And Yang Bei's image has completely fallen to the bottom. Keywords of the novel. My artist is too lacking in ambition, no pop-ups. My artist is too lacking in ambition. Download the complete TXT collection. My artist is too lacking in ambition. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Yang Bei and She Ya. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Yang Bei and She Ya. Blue Star, in the evening. Beijing. A certain 4-star hotel. She drove to a room with a pair of sunglasses on her nose and a mask on her mouth, and knocked on the door. Quickly, there was a rapid sound of footsteps coming from inside. The door opened and there was a skinny man in his 20s, 70.8 years old, with a slightly dark skin and a height of about 1.7 meters. She Ya frowned and looked at the young man, saying, "Zhao Hui, why did you schedule a meeting here? What if someone sees you?" Zhao Hui laughed and reached out to grab She Ya's shoulder, then pulled the person in. With a loud bang, I closed the door and was about to go and hug She Ya. She Ya suddenly pushed Zhao Hui away and said, "Are you crazy? I haven't divorced yet." Zhao Hui waved his hand repeatedly and begged for mercy. "Darling, I'm joking with you. This 1-month business trip, you miss me so much." Looking at She Ya's expression, Zhao Hui knew it wouldn't be a big deal this time. She still couldn't get through the hurdle in her heart. Sitting next to She Ya on the edge of the bed, Zhao Hui reached out and grabbed She Ya's hand, saying, "Hey Ya, when did you propose a divorce? When did it all last?" She Ya looked at Zhao Hui and said, "Don't worry, I'm looking for an opportunity to clarify with Yang Bei." Zhao Hui looked at She Ya with deep affection and said softly, "Hey Ya, I have been waiting for you for so many years, and it's not short of this time. You are now sensitive to your identity and have a lot to worry about. I understand you." After listening to Zhao Hui's words, She Ya was moved in her heart and said, "Wait for me for a while longer. I will find an opportunity to clarify with Yang Bei, and then we can be together." Zhao Hui smiled and nodded. Suddenly, the phone rang. She Ya took out her phone from her bag and saw the contact person. She frowned lightly and said, "Hello, Feng Qing. That. I'm almost there. Okay, see you later." Hanging up the phone, She Ya stood up and apologetically said to Zhao Hui, Hui, I have something else to do. Let's go first." Zhao Hui frowned and said, "Go see Yang Bei." She nodded. Zhao Hui snorted and said discontentedly, "We haven't seen each other for a month. I just came back and you didn't spend much time with me, but you went to find him." She Ya smiled and said, "Are you jealous? There's really something going on, they're all waiting. I'll go over first. You're tired on the way, so rest early." Zhao Hui shook his head and raised his finger to his lips, meaning to have She Ya kiss him. She Ya smiled and said, "Close your eyes first." Zhao Hui was overjoyed to hear this. Did he gain anything this time? Before, I used to only let my hands touch, but now I can kiss. Zhao Hui quickly closed his eyes. Unexpectedly, a burst of playful laughter came and She Ya had already opened the door and left. Zhao Hui's face darkened as he put on his coat and quickly followed out. She Ya walked out of the hotel, got into her car, fastened her seatbelt, started the fire, and the car slowly started moving. Orient toward Sun Feng Qing, open the navigation, and drive all the way there. Today, Yang Bei didn't even send her a message, but now, Sun Fengqing suddenly called her and asked her to go to a Lu restaurant, which is too abnormal. This guy can't change his routine either. 2 years ago, on her birthday, Yang Bei did everything in his power to surprise her. 2 years ago, on her birthday, Yang Bei had another surprise. Last year, she rehearsed for a party and was so busy that she forgot that it was her birthday and also Yang Bei. She waited outside the theater until early morning, and when she saw him, he had already been bitten several times by mosquitoes. Is this another day this year? She Ya's face was complex, and while feeling warm in her heart, there was also some agony. Yang Bei's love for her can be felt as scorching and intense as the sun. How should she say those words? She Ya didn't notice that a taxi was closely following her behind the car. XC District, a Lu restaurant. Inside the private room, Yang Bei looked at a large table of dishes and said to Sun Fengqing, "Fengqing, have you called your sister? Law. Where have you been?" Sun Fengqing is not tall, but has a strong physique. He was a younger brother of Yang Bei when he was in college. Yang Bei helped Sun Fengqing several times, and later he became Yang Bei's follower. It has been several years since they graduated from university, and their relationship has always been very strong. Sun Fengqing said, "Brother, my sister Law said she's almost here. You said you're both old husbands and wives, why are you still having any surprises?" Next to him, Sun Fengqing's daughter Law Li Yingxin patted Sun Fengqing and said, "I really envy my sister Law. I have a husband like my brother. On my sister Law's birthday, my brother personally made a 7-layer cake for her. Fengqing, you see how romantic my brother is. Look at you again. You really gave me a bowl of instant noodles to eat on my birthday." Sun Fengqing defended himself by saying, "I didn't remember that." Li Yingxin snorted, "You just don't have me in your heart." Sun Fengqing began to explain again, looking at a group of Yang Bei next to him. Leaning back on the chair, the corners of his mouth slightly curled up. Yang Bei had been busy all day today. She Ya was a top-tier celebrity with high popularity and couldn't go to crowded places. After taking Sun Fengqing through a long journey, he finally found this Lu restaurant. He and She Ya both like to eat Lu cuisine. I booked a private room in the morning and started making cakes in the afternoon. To keep it from She Ya, he spent the whole afternoon soaking in Sun Fengqing's house making cakes, just to surprise She Ya. A tingling sensation spread throughout his body, and his body told him that he was a bit tired. However, mentally, Yang Bei remained happy and excited. She will definitely like this surprise, right? Time passed by minute by second, and Yang Bei had someone bring up all the dishes one by one, filling the entire table. 10 minutes later, footsteps could be heard outside the private room. With a clatter, the private door was pushed open, and She Ya walked in, took off her sunglasses and mask, and placed them on the table next to the door. Looking at the woman walking in, Yang Bei felt like his whole body was about to melt. He had been married for 3 years and thanked the heavens countless nights. He was able to marry the goddess of his dreams. Every day of the 3 years, even though he was tired and bitter, he felt happy because he knew he had her by his side. "Sister-in-law, you have finally arrived." Li Yingxin happily walked over, grabbed She Ya's arm, and led her to the dinner table. "Come, sister-in-law, sit here." Li Yingxin pressed She Ya onto the seat next to Yang Bei. Yang Bei looked at his wife in front of him, and she became even more beautiful. Yang Bei held She Ya's hand and said, "Wife, happy birthday. Look, what I ordered were all your favorite dishes." Sun Fengqing followed suit and shouted, "Happy birthday, sister-in-law." Li Yingxin also said happily, "Sister-in-law, happy birthday. You don't know how much my brother loves you. Fengqing and I wanted to eat prawns, but he didn't give us any and ordered a table that you like." She Ya's guilty expression flashed in her eyes and she smiled, "Thank you all." After a pause, She Ya looked at Yang Bei and snorted, saying, "Without a cake, I won't give you a 5-star review. I'll give you a 4-star review. Yang Bei nodded repeatedly, I'm satisfied with 4 stars. Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin exchanged a glance, both able to see the expectations in each other's eyes. Sun Fengqing raised his hand and looked at the watch on his wrist, saying, Sister-in-law, please wait a moment. Time is almost here. She Ya was taken aback and asked in confusion, what time? Sun Fengqing smiled mysteriously and said, you'll know later. Before Sun Fengqing could finish speaking, the private door was pushed open, and the 4 of them instinctively looked at the door, all stunned. I saw a thin and slightly black-skinned man coming in, about the age of 20.7 or 8. P.S. New books for recommendation and collection. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Wife, I love you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Wife, I love you. Seeing the man entering, everyone's faces changed. Sun Fengqing originally thought he was a waiter, but unexpectedly, a stranger came in. Sun Fengqing was surprised and said, who are you? Li Yingxin also looked puzzled. And both She Ya and Yang Bei had a sudden change in their faces. Yang Bei once saw a photo of this person in his study, which was included in a previous book by She Ya. When she first got married, She Ya occasionally mentioned that she had a first-love boyfriend. Later, due to some reasons, the two broke up. Yang Bei speculated that the photo should be She Ya's first love. The man in that photo still appeared a bit inexperienced. Although there were some changes between the man who broke into the private room and the photo, Yang Bei still recognized him at a glance. She Ya's face turned pale. She never expected that Zhao Hui would suddenly appear. Zhao Hui's face was serious and he didn't pay attention to Sun Fengqing. Instead, he walked straight to She Ya and looked at her, who was somewhat confused. Zhao Hui said softly, I'm sorry, Yaya. My sudden appearance should have disrupted your plan. Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin exchanged a glance, both able to see the disbelief in each other's eyes. Yang Bei pursed his lips tightly, turning white as he pursed. His gaze fixed on Zhao Hui and he said, Wife, who is he? She Ya's face was complicated. He is the first love I told you about, his name is Zhao Hui. Yang Bei's face darkened as he looked at Zhao Hui and said coldly, Get out, you're not welcome here. Zhao Hui looked at Yang Bei with a hint of pity, sympathy, and contempt in his eyes. He didn't pay attention to Yang Bei, but looked at She Ya and whispered, Yaya, you're so kind. You've been trying to find a chance to divorce him, but in the past 6 months, you've been unable to bear it. During this 1-month business trip, I've thought about this bad guy, let me take care of him. You don't have to worry about anything, let me handle the rest. She Ya glared at Zhao Hui, then sighed and turned to look at Yang Bei with a guilty expression on her face. I originally wanted to find an opportunity to slowly explain it to you, but it has been difficult for me to speak up, but this is the end of the matter. Let me explain it clearly. Upon hearing this, Yang Bei's heart thumped. He had already vaguely guessed what She Ya was going to say, and his face turned painful as he said, No, wife, can you stop saying it? She Ya looked at Yang Bei's humble appearance and couldn't bear it, but she had already made a decision. This time, let's just have a showdown. She Ya's gaze remained firm as she said, I'm talking, you listen, okay? Yang Bei's nose turned sour and his heart was filled with anxiety. He said in a somewhat pleading tone, Wife, what do you have to say? Let's talk slowly when we go home, okay? Zhao Hui reached out and grabbed She Ya's hand, saying, Yang Bei, I'm sorry, but now that I've made things clear, it's a relief for you, me, and Ya. Yang Bei's face turned cold as he grabbed Zhao Hui's collar and roared, Why don't you shut up for me? Sun Fengqing also suddenly stood up and glared angrily at Zhao Hui. She Ya was also startled when she saw Yang Bei suddenly take action. Previously, she heard Sun Fengqing say that fighting was a common occurrence in Yang Bei's student days, but after getting married, Yang Bei seemed to have changed a person. It was the first time she saw Yang Bei angry. She Ya quickly pushed Yang Bei away and protected Zhao Hui, shouting at him, "If you're angry, come at me. I'm sorry for you." Yang Bei was already restless, and with such a push from Xia, he collapsed into a chair, making a piercing creaking sound as the chair rubbed against the floor. Xia took a deep breath and said, "Zhao Hui and I have known each other since junior high school. We started dating in high school. In college, he went abroad to study, and we separated. After so many years, I thought I had forgotten about him. But 6 months ago, when he found me again, I realized that I still love him. I originally wanted to cut off contact with him, but there were some things that couldn't be easily broken if you wanted to. After understanding these things, I wanted to find an opportunity to explain them to you, but it has been dragging on until now. Yang Bei, I'm sorry." Xia looked at Yang Bei, who was slumped in a chair with red eyes and a dull complexion. For a moment, guilt surged again and she said, "I'm sorry." At this moment, Yang Bei felt as if his heart was being tightly grasped by a big hand, making him unable to breathe and his eyes sore uncontrollably, tears about to flow out. Yang Bei gritted his teeth tightly, not wanting to cry. He dare not speak now. With just one mouth, his voice will definitely tremble and tears will surely flow out. Xia took a deep breath as Yang Bei remained silent and said, "In a few days, I will have someone give you the divorce agreement so we can get together and part ways." After speaking, Xia took Zhao Hui's hand and was about to walk out. For some reason, at this moment, Xia also felt uncomfortable in her heart. After all, we have been married for 3 years, and after spending over 1,000 days together and accompanying each other, without any emotions, there may still be some family affection. A question popped up in her heart, whether her reckless choice for love was right or wrong. When Xia pulled Zhao Hui and turned to leave, Yang Bei's grief reached its peak, tears gushing out like surging river water, streaming down his face. He wants to preserve some of the dignity of men, he wants to fight Zhao Hui, even if they both die together. But Xia won't agree. All he can do now is not to let his weak side appear in front of Xia. Good to gather and good to scatter, leaving some dignity for oneself. Tears are salty. How can she leave? How could you walk so decisively? Am I not doing well enough? Do I want to keep you now? Is it still meaningful? Yang Bei's mind is now in turmoil, with thoughts surging in his mind, and various thoughts emerging one by one. Perhaps he wants to find some temporary comfort in this chaotic thinking, so that he can get through this embarrassing moment. The sound of Sun Fengqing clapping the table echoed in his ear. "Sun Tzu, are you still human? Can you also do this to destroy someone's family?" Then came Li Yingxin's voice, "Sister-in-law, don't leave." The creaking sound of the door and the sound of footsteps drifted away. Yang Bei instinctively turned his head and saw 2 figures holding hands, disappearing at the door. Yang Bei shook his head and felt a bit dizzy. Then, an uncontrollable and intense pain emanated from his brain. In their eyes, Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin began to appear as double figures, and then it seemed as if the entire world had become blurred. At the next moment, only the faint cries of Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin were heard, and Yang Bei lost consciousness. Xia, who walked out of the private room, suddenly felt a wave of panic in her heart, and her breathing became a bit rapid. Zhao Hui beside him was excited about the victory he had won. Seeing that Xia was a bit abnormal, he asked, "Yaya, what's wrong with you? Are you okay?" Xia shook her head and said, "It's okay, I suddenly feel a little uncomfortable." Zhao Hui said, "Today's situation was quite sudden, and it's normal for you to feel uncomfortable. I'll take you back to rest later." She nodded. Suddenly, at the corner ahead, 2 waiters pushed a cart over, and on the cart was a 7-layer cream cake. On the top of the cake, there were 5 big characters written in red jam. "Wife, I love you." The left waitress envied and said, "This cake is really big. That gentleman's wife is so happy." The waitress on the right nodded and said, "Yes, I heard them talking." The gentleman spent an afternoon making this cake himself, saying it was to surprise his wife. "It's so romantic. If I could find a husband who loves me so much in the future, I would be willing to live 10 years less." She Ya, Zhao Hui, and two waiters passed by and heard each other's two conversations. Zhao Hui chuckled and said, "It's really interesting, Yaya. Can I also make a cake for you on your birthday?" Zhao Hui originally thought that if he said these words, She Ya would be very moved. However, She Ya didn't say anything and said, "Yaya, what are you thinking?" She Ya raised her head, her eyes already turning red. At this moment, she actually felt a bit sarcastic. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Online Public Opinion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Online Public Opinion. The next day, early in the morning. There have been some news online about top-tier singer She Ya and her husband Yang Bei. She Ya's attempt to win over Yang Bei seems to have caused a breakdown in their marital relationship. On She Ya's birthday, Yang Bei did not send his blessings like in previous years. Both She Ya and Yang Bei have not publicly responded to online rumors, suspected of accepting news of marital discord. This couple, who were not initially favored, seems to be coming to an end in their third year. Slowly, there was a growing amount of black material about Yang Bei online, and many netizens seem to have witnessed it firsthand, revealing some eye-catching exclusive celebrity endorsements. Do you know that there is domestic violence in Yang Bei? What? No way, right? She Ya was married to him back then, and he even resorted to domestic violence. I have a picture and a truth here. Look, in this picture of She Ya, there is a black patch on her calf, which was hit by Yang Bei. Sleeping slot, is that a man? How could he hit a woman? Why did he hit a woman who loves him so much? Disgusting. Yeah, Yang Bei, get out of the entertainment industry. Oh my God, I saw a question on the forum about Yang Bei's excessive gambling. I also saw it. It's already in the top 10 trending topics on the forum. It's quite popular. It's all just riding on She Ya's popularity. I really feel sad for She Ya. Originally, she had a promising future, but she married Yang Bei early. It's not that Yang Bei is inferior, but rather that compared to She Ya's excellence, he really doesn't deserve it. I'm definitely not worthy of She Ya. Now there's news of losing several million in Macau gambling. It's like dragging She Ya down with her strength. Divorce, do people like this not divorce and keep it for the Chinese New Year? For a while, news online about Yang Bei's domestic violence, excessive gambling, eating soft food, and even sexual incompetence has been widely circulated by major marketing accounts. Subsequently, an entry calling for She Ya and Yang Bei to divorce was topped on Weibo's hot search. Sister Ya, get divorced quickly. This kind of man should be killed with one blow. It's disgusting. I support Yaya's divorce. TSK, no wonder we've been married for 3 years and haven't had children yet. It turns out that Yang Bei has a problem and supports She Ya and Yang Bei's divorce. Sister Ya, you are so excellent that you are suitable for a better one. In a private residence of She Ya in a certain residential area in Beijing. She Ya didn't go home last night. She was afraid of encountering Yang Bei, which would cause embarrassment between the two, so she asked Zhao Hui to send her here. Last night, due to emotional fluctuations, I slept soundly until very late. And early this morning, I was awakened by my agent's phone call. From her agent, she only learned about a series of things happening online. After hanging up the phone, she opened her computer and took a look. She saw a series of black materials about Yang Bei, and her eyebrows furrowed deeper and her face became increasingly ugly. Domestic violence. Is he willing? Excessive gambling. Is financial power in her hands, okay? What did he gamble with? Eating soft rice. In the past 3 years, it seems that she has rarely helped Yang Bei subjectively, but objectively speaking, Yang Bei has also borrowed some of her popularity, and eating a soft meal can barely make sense. And that sexual incompetence, what are they all? All of the above can basically be said to be nonsense. Who did Yang Bei offend? This is going to cut off the road after Yang Bei. She Ya raised her eyebrows, picked up her phone, found Zhao Hui's contact information, and dialed over. The phone quickly got through, and Zhao Hui's voice came in. "Hello, Yaya, are you awake?" She Ya said directly, "Ah Hui, did you find someone to do the so-called whistleblowing about Yang Bei online?" Zhao Hui chuckled and said, "Yes, Yaya. I'm afraid Yang Bei won't agree to divorce and will continue to harass you in the future. Once a few leaks are released this time, even if he doesn't leave, netizens will have to force him to leave." Haha. Upon hearing this, She Ya felt a headache for a moment. In her original plan, she and Yang Bei quietly divorced. After a long time, even if the divorce was exposed, it would not have any impact on both parties. This is the best of both worlds approach. She knows Yang Bei well, he is not the kind of person who stubbornly clings to him. Moreover, Hui is an outsider and not very familiar with the public relations rules of the entertainment industry. If he leaves any leverage, it will be a big problem in the future. She Ya took a deep breath and said, "Ah Hui, you didn't do this right." Zhao Hui was taken aback for a moment and quickly said, "Yaya. She Ya interrupted, "Firstly, you don't need to worry about this matter anymore. All online activities should be stopped. Secondly, think carefully about whether the person you are looking for is reliable and whether your identity has been leaked. This is a hidden danger for us to get married in the future." Upon hearing this, Zhao Hui felt that what She Ya said was also reasonable. "Okay, but Yaya, hurry up and have Yang Bei sign the divorce agreement, so as not to have many dreams at night." "I know." Hanging up the phone, She Ya leaned against the sofa. Although she was not satisfied with Zhao Hui's approach, since Zhao Hui had already done so, she could use it. The situation was indeed quite good for her. She Ya was thinking about divorce in her heart. He was originally not suitable for the entertainment industry. Singers rely on talent, and with his talent, without my help, he would at most become a second-tier singer in the entertainment industry. It's also good to withdraw from the entertainment industry this time. The figure of Yang Bei came to mind, but in She Ya's heart, she still couldn't bear it. For 3 years, caring and caring every day, asking for warmth and comfort, even if the heart is a stone, it will still be warmed. If it weren't for Zhao Hui's appearance, maybe the two of them would have gone a lifetime. She Ya sighed and said, "Let's compensate him more for this divorce. Even if he can't survive in the entertainment industry, he won't be starving." Beijing, City Hospital. When Yang Bei woke up, it was already the next morning. However, although Yang Bei woke up, he didn't rush to open his eyes, but rather sorted out the chaotic memories in his mind at this moment. After the memories were gradually cleared, Yang Bei finally recognized the current situation. He had traveled through it. Yang Bei's breath paused slightly. He had watched some TV dramas or novels about time travel before, but he never expected that time travel would happen to him this time. In his previous life, he was the king of Chinese music on earth. In this life, I never expected to enter the entertainment industry again by some strange means, but I am just a third-tier singer with little fame. High school memory. University time. Wife She Ya. The third party is Zhao Hui. Birthday celebration. With the reception of memory, Yang Bei's facial features became much clearer and more agile. In his ears, he could hear the conversation between two people, and upon hearing their voices, the names of these two people came to mind in Yang Bei's mind. Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin are a couple. Sun Fengqing said, "Alas, what a great birthday. How could it be like this? Our brother doesn't know when he'll wake up yet." Li Yingxin said, "Didn't the doctor say so?" Our brother's condition this time was mainly caused by physical exhaustion, and there wasn't a big problem. Moreover, the delivery was timely, so we should rest for a few days. Sun Fengqing snorted, "Are you physically tired? Aren't you tired for her birthday?" Li Yingxin said, "That's right, it's too much. How can my sister law, sister Ya, and she is first love compare to my brother? My brother is so handsome, and he still loves his wife so much. Besides not being as good as my sister law in her career, what's the difference?" Yang Bei listened to the conversation between the two and slowly opened his eyes. "I thought it would be 2 people, but to my surprise, there were 3 people in sight by the hospital bed." Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin sat on chairs by the hospital bed. In front of the windowsill, a tall figure wearing a black suit and pants turned his back to him, looking out, unsure of what he was thinking. Yang Bei raised his eyebrows, but she actually came. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Gaomang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Gaomang. The woman in the suit is called Gaomang and is the agent of the original owner. She is a very capable workplace woman, and it is not an exaggeration to say she is a strong woman. However, Yang Bei's talent is not particularly outstanding, and his energy is also focused on his family. It can be said that he does not catch the eye of Gaomang in all aspects. Because She Ya is a top-tier singer highly praised by the company, even if Gaomang is not satisfied with Yang Bei, the company will not terminate his contract. After all, She Ya still needs to give face. Gaomang has 3 contracted artists in his hands, 1 in the 2nd tier and 2 in the 3rd tier, and Yang Bei is the least developed one among them. Everyone can see that Yang Bei's potential is limited, and even if he works hard, the possibility of achieving great success is extremely low. Moreover, Yang Bei is fully focused on She Ya, so his career strength is naturally even less. Although Gaomang and Yang Bei have a relationship as agents and artists, their relationship is really not deep. In Yang Bei's memory, the last time he met Gaomang was a month ago, and he didn't meet his agent for a month. This can be said to be unbelievable in the eyes of artists in the entertainment industry. Who had the foresight to dream? I knew it all my life. Chaotang falls asleep in spring, the sun is delayed outside the window. A clear voice suddenly sounded in the ward, startling Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin sitting by the bed. When they saw Yang Bei, who had already opened his eyes and looked at them with a light smile, Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin were both excited. "Brother, you're awake. What are you thinking?" "Ha ha ha, you've woken up, brother. You really scared me this time." Yang Bei smiled, perhaps due to the benefits brought by time travel. The original owner had a sudden cerebral hemorrhage, and now he feels like there is no one around. Yang Bei took a light breath and felt the air was so fresh. He seemed to have not felt the beauty of life for a long time. In his previous life, he debuted at the age of 16 and suddenly passed away on the concert stage at the age of 30. Every day, it seemed like he was fighting and striving with all his might. Behind his series of titles such as Genius, Superstar, and King of Songs, he has worked tirelessly for over a decade. Although he succeeded, he was too tired. At the moment of death, he suddenly realized, why should life be so tiring? Starting over, he wants to live a happier life. Yang Bei's mouth curved and he was in a good mood. Life has started over again, and I have actually taken the regret medicine once. Of course, I am in a good mood. Yang Bei sat up, raised his hand and refused the help of Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin. He leaned against the bedside and looked at the 2 people, saying, "Thank you for your hard work." The 2 waved their hands repeatedly. Both Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin were immersed in the good news of Yang Bei's awakening and did not notice any changes gradually appearing on his body. And by the window, Gaomang turned around, wrapped his hands around his chest, and his gaze fell on Yang Bei. After a moment, Gaomang slightly raised his eyebrows. It seems that something is different. But as for where it was different, Gaomang didn't know. From a sensory perspective, looking at Yang Bei's expression and gaze was a kind of indifference, a kind of maturity, as if experiencing 1,000 sails. At this moment, Yang Bei also raised his head and looked at her. "Sister Mang, you're here too." Gaomang met Yang Bei's gaze and nodded, saying, "Your friend answered your call and knew you were sick, so I came to take a look." The sunlight shone in from outside the window, looking at Gaomang from the direction of Yang Bei. Gaomang's originally black and beautiful hair was now shining with golden light. Yang Bei instinctively squinted his eyes and said, "Thank you, Sister Mang." "What's up, Sister Mang?" Gaomang pursed her lips. The artist was hospitalized and the agent came to visit, shouldn't it? Is Yang Bei's expression and the meaning behind these words ironic that she usually doesn't pay attention to him? Gaomang himself knew that he had a lot of thoughts, so he suppressed his thoughts and said, "Yes, Li Zikai is going to participate in New Voice of China next month and needs an assistant singer as his guest. You can go." Gaomang has 3 artists in his hands, and the only second-tier singer among them is Li Zikai, who is also somewhat famous in China. Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin listened to Gaomang's words, exchanged a glance, and looked at Yang Bei with a happy expression. They knew that although Yang Bei didn't say anything, he had always longed for more resources. However, before, Yang Bei's career demands were not as important as She Ya's. Now that She Ya is going to divorce Yang Bei, this good news can be considered as a comfort to Yang Bei. However, after hearing Gao Busy's words, Yang Bei frowned. The entertainment industry. In my previous life, I spent all my time and energy in this circle. Do I still have to rise and fall in this circle in this life? Never again. He has tasted the taste of success, and in this life, he wants to change his way of life. Yang Bei shook his head and smiled at Gaomang, saying, "Sister Mang, why don't you find someone else?" "I won't go." After Yang Bei finished speaking, Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin next to him were both startled and stunned on the spot. Sun Fengqing hurriedly said, "Brother, what are you saying?" Li Yingxin also said, "Yes, brother, this is such a great opportunity. This is new Song of China. Yang Bei shook his head. Gaomang frowned and looked at Yang Bei. "Dao, why?" Yang Bei pondered for a moment and said, "Do you know why I was hospitalized?" Gaomang nodded and said, "I heard what Mr. Sun said." Sun Fengqing said repeatedly, "Sister Mang, just call me Fengqing. My brother calls you Sister Mang, and I call him brother. So, in that case, I should also call you Sister Sheng." Gaomang smiled and continued to turn his head to look at Yang Bei. Li Yingxin patted Sun Fengqing nearby and said, "Don't interrupt." Yang Bei smiled lightly at Gaomang, then turned his gaze to the ceiling and said in a plain tone, "Sister Mang, I'm a bit disheartened about the entertainment industry now. I don't want to take this path anymore. I want to leave the circle, I want to go out and relax, I want to try other ordinary and fulfilling lifestyles. With a different mindset, the world has become a different place." After Yang Bei finished speaking, Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin were both stunned. Sun Fengqing said, "It's over, Xinzi. Did our brother get stimulated and become foolish?" Li Yingxin nodded and said, "I think we should go call a doctor. Maybe. The cerebral hemorrhage is not good at all, and it even damaged my brother's brain." Upon hearing their words, Yang Bei's face immediately turned black. Turning his head to look at Gaomang, he noticed that he was also looking at him with a strange look. Yang Bei said in silence, "You don't think I'm joking too, do you?" "I don't have it." Gaomang shook his head after a pause. Gaomang said with some seriousness, "Yang Bei, I know you love She Ya very much. What she does causes you a lot of excitement, which makes you want to escape. But now that you are an adult, you need to be able to distinguish between reality and imagination. Are you saying you're not joking about leaving the circle? Well, I'll ask you, if you're not an artist, what are you doing to support yourself? Do you think you're still young?" Can you learn new skills? Even if you learn new skills, do you have work experience? You don't have work experience and are not a fresh graduate. Why do they hire you? Even if you work in other industries, do you think that other industries are the best place for everyone? Most importantly, if you want to withdraw from the circle, can you afford to pay the penalty for breach of contract? After Gaomang finished speaking, there was a moment of silence in the ward. Yang Bei opened his mouth for a moment, unsure of how to respond. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Sorting out the clues. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Sorting out the clues. Yang Bei smiled bitterly, and what Gaomang said was very realistic. The most important thing is that he is not capable of paying up to millions of liquidated damages now. But if it really leaves him at a loss, that's not necessarily true. However, there are some words that are not suitable to say. After seeing that Yang Bei was silent, Gaomang nodded and said, "That's it. We'll have to wait for a while for the matter of Hua Xia Xi and Gusheng. Please prepare in advance. By the way, you don't need to worry about some things online for now. I'll find someone to check and let you know when there's any news." After finishing speaking, Gaomang raised his wrist and looked at his watch, saying, "I have something else to do. You can rest, I'll leave first." After finishing speaking, he nodded to Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin, then turned around and walked outside the ward. Looking at Gaomang's back, Yang Bei smiled bitterly and shook his head. In the memory of the original owner he received, Gaomang had such a temperament. After Gaomang left, Li Yingxin shrugged and looked at Yang Bei. "Brother, your agent looks very difficult to deal with." Yang Bei nodded and thought for a moment before saying, Someone in the company called her female demon head, or cold Yanwang. It's hard to get along with. Sun Fengqing was taken aback for a moment and said, "Brother, isn't that just one word?" Yang Bei. After a pause, Yang Bei suddenly remembered what Gaomang had said earlier and looked at the two of them, saying, "What does Gaomang mean? Is there anything online?" Sun Fengqing and Li Ying's faces darkened as they spoke on the news. Looking at the expressions on the two of them, Yang Bei knew it wasn't a good thing, but for him now, what news is there that he can't accept? Life is a new beginning, and he is very open-minded. Yang Beidao said, "What's going on? Don't be so motherly." Sun Fengqing hesitated for a moment and looked at Li Yingxin. "You say." Li Yingxin was taken aback and said, "I won't say it, you say it." Sun Fengqing gritted his teeth, took out his phone, found today's trending news, and handed it to Yang Bei. Yang Bei took the phone in confusion and looked at the screen. Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin have been paying attention to Yang Bei's expression, not knowing how angry and sad he must be. "Fengqing, do you think my brother won't be able to accept it? What I'm worried about now is what if my brother gets another cerebral hemorrhage from being stimulated? The doctor said it's a miracle to be fine this time. Can another cerebral hemorrhage happen again? Yeah, what if half of Brother Wan's body fails? Brother is still so young." Yang Bei looked at the content on his phone and also felt the pity, sympathy, and nervous gaze from Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin. He pursed his lips and looked up at the two of them, saying, "What are you whispering about?" Sun Fengqing looked at Yang Bei's seemingly unchanged expression and was somewhat surprised, saying, "Brother, have you seen it?" Yang Bei nodded and said, "I've seen it." "Have you all watched it?" "I've seen it all." Sun Fengqing took his phone and looked up. It was the news online about Yang Bei's domestic violence, excessive gambling, soft rice, and incompetence. Li Yingxin looked at Yang Bei with some concern and said, "Brother, are you okay?" Yang Bei smiled and said, "I've said it all, I've seen it through. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore, it's disappointing." Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin originally wanted to ask again, but now they had to close their open mouths. Next, Yang Bei turned around and felt nothing unusual. He was about to be discharged, but Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin couldn't stop him. Sun Fengqing asked, "Brother, what are your plans?" "Sister-in-law, sister-in-law." Sun Fengqing also felt a bit tricky for a while and didn't know what to say. "Let's get divorced," Yang Bei said as he put on his coat, watching Yang Bei calmly utter the words, "divorce." Both Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin felt somewhat incredulous. Based on their understanding of Yang Bei, the current Yang Bei should be heartbroken. They even thought about how to comfort Yang Bei and make him feel better. And now Yang Bei's performance makes them feel like they've punched cotton. Putting on his coat, Yang Bei moved his body to the bedside and began putting on his shoes. "I won't go back to my home. Do you know where there is a rental house nearby?" Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin never regained their senses and said, "Ah. Brother, you want to rent a house?" Yang Bei nodded. Li Yingxin said, "Brother, don't you want that big house in your house?" Yang Bei put on his shoes and stomped hard on the ground, feeling grounded. He said, "The house was bought by Shia with money, and it's nothing to do with me. If I get divorced, I have to find a place to live again." As he spoke, recalling the news he had just seen on his phone, Yang Bei smiled and said, "Based on the current public opinion online, even if I leave the house clean, I'm afraid I'll be scolded to death." Yang Bei smiled and shook his head. Sun Fengqing said, "Can you still laugh? My brother, you're almost forced to stay in the entertainment industry." Yang Bei looked at Sun Fengqing and said, "Fengqing, what I just said to Gaomang is really not a joke. If the company hides me, I think I would be more willing to do so." Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin looked at Yang Bei, who had a serious expression and was also happy to be hidden in snow, and both of them thought to themselves, "That's it. Brother has been stimulated quite a bit this time, it's like he has changed a person." Next, the three of them went together to complete the discharge procedures. After coming out of the hospital, Sun Fengqing wanted Yang Bei to stay with him, but Yang Bei didn't agree to anything. The days of the young couple were as sweet as honey. If he had passed, he wouldn't have bothered them. Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin have been in bed since yesterday and haven't slept much. Yang Bei looked at their panda eyes and hurried them back home. After the two of them left, Yang Bei finally breathed a sigh of relief. Another reason for not staying at Sun Fengqing's house is that Yang Bei, after all, has traveled through time. Although he has received the memories of the original owner, there must be many differences in his lifestyle habits. Living at Sun Fengqing's place will inevitably bring some troubles, and he now wants to have a beautiful life and does not want to be exposed to trouble. The matter of renting a house took its time, and Yang Bei first found a 5-star hotel in the surrounding area. He doesn't have much money now, but life is something to enjoy. After paying the money at the front desk, a bank card balance text message came from the phone. Yang Bei clicked to open it and found that the previous card had 21,000 yuan, but now he has paid 1,200 yuan for the overnight room fee, leaving 19,800 yuan in his card. Yang Bei put away his phone and sighed in his heart. It's been a long time since he felt so poor. In his previous life, since his debut, it can be said that he had hardly ever worried about money. When he passed away, he should have already had several billion yuan of wealth, right? Unfortunately, it cannot be brought over. If it were brought over, he would have paid a penalty for breach of contract and traveled around the world. After daydreaming for a while, the front desk completed the procedures and handed over their ID card and room card together. Yang Bei took it over, thanked him, and then walked into the nearby elevator. After getting out of the elevator and looking at the door number, Yang Bei found his room. The first thing, of course, is to take a shower first. After taking a shower, Yang Bei brushed his teeth again. While brushing his teeth, he looked at himself in the mirror and suddenly realized that there seemed to be a slight resemblance between him in the mirror and his past life. For a singer, the most important thing is, of course, their singing skills, and their solid strength. And the second most important thing is appearance. If you have a good appearance, it can also be a great help for the singer. In his previous life, Yang Bei became the king of Chinese music at the age of 10, which was also related to his handsome appearance. Yang Bei looked in the mirror and caressed his face 360 degrees back and forth. TSK, no wonder people say they eat soft rice. It's a pity that this little white face doesn't eat soft rice, he said. Yang Bei has been in the entertainment industry for so many years, what haven't he seen before? He has also seen the incident of a young man who was taken care of by a wealthy woman and brought into the group. When joking with his friends, he even joked that he envied that kind of life. Unfortunately, a man like him who follows a tough style is destined to not be in the favor of most wealthy women. After washing up, Yang Bei walked onto the big and soft bed, sat cross-legged, and woke up at the hospital today. He hadn't fully sorted out his current condition. There's a bit of confusion in his mind, he's going to start tidying up his thoughts. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Clean out of household. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Clean out of household. Yang Bei, sitting cross-legged on the bed, began to calculate for himself. After tugging for a while, Yang Bei realized that although his current life was like a tangled thread, there was one thread that he must immediately take action on, which was to divorce She Ya. Thinking of She Ya, information about this woman suddenly came to mind, and the memories of the original owner began to reappear. Yang Bei shook his head and didn't let himself think about these things, otherwise he would inevitably be influenced by the original owner's memory. The most important person in a person's life is not their parents or children, but their own partner. The only one who can accompany them for a lifetime is their partner. For Yang Bei now, She Ya's partner is a rope that binds him, and he must quickly return to singlehood, otherwise he will feel uncomfortable wherever he goes. If he encounters a girl he likes at any time, he cannot pursue her as a married person. Divorce should be taken seriously, and there is also the urgent matter of renting a house. He currently doesn't have 20,000 yuan at all, and renting a house in Beijing is not cheap. 20,000 yuan can be said to be very tight. It was too late to find a house today, so Yang Bei chose the best option when he had to stay in a hotel. But if we stay for another 2 days, we won't even have enough money to rent a house. But at this point, there is another thing to face, which is making money. You can wait until you rent a house to think about making money. The above 3 things are currently quite important. After clearing his mind, Yang Bei began to take action. Picking up his phone and about to find She Ya's number, Gaomang suddenly sent a message saying, "Yang Bei, remember to contact Li Zikai in advance and ask him for advice." Yang Bei took a glance and then retreated. He was not very interested in the song, Hua Xia Xian Gusheng. He had played too much music in his previous life and was too familiar with the music industry. What he wanted to do more was to attract him more. After exiting, Yang Bei found She Ya's phone number and dialed it out. The phone rang for a while, and just as Yang Bei thought no one was answering, the phone suddenly answered. "Hello, Yang Bei." On the phone, the voice of She Ya came out. After speaking, the phone fell into silence. Yang Beidao said, "Miss Shi, do you have time recently?" On the other side, She Ya was taken aback. "Miss Shi." For a moment, She Ya's emotions were a bit complicated in her heart. Taking a deep breath, She Ya said, "Yang Bei, the two of us. It was fate but not fate. Let's get together and part ways." Yang Bei breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. He was worried that something might go wrong during the divorce, but now, judging from She Ya's attitude, he doesn't have much feelings for him, so it's easy to handle. Yang Bei smiled and said, "Well, I know. If you have time recently, let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau." She Ya remained silent for a moment and said, "Then let's do it tomorrow, 3 days later." Yang Beidao said, "Okay." She Ya asked, "Are you at home now?" Yang Bei was taken aback and quickly understood. She Ya mentioned their home and said, "No, I'm at the hotel right now." She Ya coughed lightly and said, "I haven't gone back either. Can you come back this afternoon? Let's discuss the property division. Yang Bei shook his head and said, I left the house clean. What are you saying? She Ya's breath stopped. Yang Bei repeated again and said, I leave the house clean. She Ya asked, don't you think about it? No need, Yang Bei refused. Clack. As soon as Yang Bei finished speaking, She Ya hung up the phone. Yang Bei was taken aback and looked at his phone speechlessly. As for what? I said I will leave the house clean and not argue with you for property. You see, it excites you. Yang Bei shook his head. Clearing out of the house was something he had just carefully considered. One of them is the house, car, home decoration, and large furniture, which are mostly bought by She Ya, and the division of property is not his responsibility. The second reason is that Yang Bei himself doesn't want this thing. Anyway, She Ya wore a green grassland-colored hat for the original owner. Now that Yang Bei has traveled to the original owner, he can be said to empathize with him, and his impression of She Ya is not good. Even if She Ya gives him tens of thousands of yuan, would he be too embarrassed to take it? Is this selling one's own money or selling one's wife's money? Thirdly, Yang Bei also thought of the online public opinion that targeted him. It is certain that the mastermind behind the scenes is She Ya. At this moment, she is smearing him, and what she wants is to stand on the moral high ground. Let him divorce and leave the house clean. If it were him in the past, he would definitely not compromise so easily, but now that he has regained his life, he really can't show much interest in various conspiracies and tricks. He doesn't care so much about the opinions of online netizens. Living well is the most important thing for him. In fact, there is another reason why he chose to leave the household with a net income. Although he is currently short of money, he really doesn't value this amount of money. After all, he used to be a superstar with a net worth of hundreds of millions. Moreover, based on his current understanding of the former owner's ex-wife, would she generously give him a lot of money? Impossible. The divorce matter is almost resolved. You only need to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau in 3 days to handle the divorce procedures. In fact, according to Yang Bei's idea, it's best to get the divorce certificate this afternoon to avoid long dreams. But who would have thought that She Ya would only have time in 3 days? After thinking for a while, Yang Bei started searching for rental information online again. She Ya's family. The house here was previously promoted by She Ya for real estate developers. After the property was opened and sold, the developers gave her a set for almost free. The house was just a simple decoration because it doesn't usually accommodate people, so there isn't much furniture. She Ya sat on the sofa, staring blankly at her phone with a complex expression on her face. The current situation is completely different from what she thought, much smoother than she imagined. She thought Yang Bei would pester her relentlessly, but suddenly he happily agreed to divorce. She had already planned to give her house, car, and even half of her family's savings to Yang Bei, but suddenly Yang Bei had to leave the house completely. This kind of Yang Bei gives her a sense of unfamiliarity, making her feel like a completely different person. However, despite the rapid development of the situation, she did not feel the expected happiness, but instead was haunted by an unknown melancholy. How could he have made such a big change? She asked herself, was it because she was hurt too deeply? He divorced so happily and didn't want any property, wouldn't he be unable to take it seriously? Will you do anything foolish? Thinking of this, She Ya suddenly felt a worry in her heart, wanting to quickly call back. But when I thought about their current relationship, I put down my phone again. She Ya took a light breath and suppressed her emotions. In the 3 years before her marriage, it was possible that the distance was too close. She had never paid attention to Yang Bei, never thought from his perspective, or worried about him. And now that the distance has widened, she has started to daydream. With a gentle smile, She Ya told herself that she had thought too much. She slid over the husband in the contact list and pursed her lips, editing the contact as Yang Bei. Then I found Zhao Hui's phone number and dialed it. She should have shared this good news with Zhao Hui. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Family. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 7 Family. Hangzhou, Yang family. Li Shulan was watching TV at home when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Li Shulan asked her daughter Yang Lan to open the door. Yang Lan walked to the door and looked out through the door mirror. Her face changed and she turned back to the sofa, whispering, "Mom, it's Aunt Chi." Aunt Chi Kayun and her mother can be said to be enemies in life. They have fought openly and secretly in the same unit since they were young. In the words of their young people, they are plastic sisters flowers. On the surface, they have a good relationship. But every time Aunt Chi and her mother sit together and talk, Aunt Chi either walks away with a dark face. Either Aunt Chi left with great enthusiasm, and Mom cursed loudly at home. Upon hearing that Chi Kayun had arrived, Li Shulan's spirit was instantly boosted. She picked up the remote control and turned off the TV. She picked up a large book bound in thread from the coffee table and placed it on her lap. She waved her hand to Yang Lan and said, "You go open the door and tell me I'm reading." Yang Lan looked at her mother silently, nodded, and turned to open the door. Opening the door, Yang Lan smiled and said, "Aunt Chi, you're here. My mom is reading a book." Chi Kayun, in her 50s, walked in with a black bag on her shoulder and smiled, "Hey, where are you reading?" Yang Lan closed the door. Chi Kayun walked towards the living room and happened to see Li Shulan put down her book. "Shulan, are you so serious? What kind of book is this?" Chi Kayun sat directly across from Li Shulan. Yang Lan couldn't help but cover her face. "Is the secret battle starting again?" Li Shulan smiled and said, "A history book is full of traditional Chinese characters, which may seem troublesome, but reading history can still teach you some wisdom. But Yun, I suggest you also buy a history book to read." The meaning behind Li Shulan's words is that Chi Kayun lacks wisdom. In the past, Chi Kayun must have been anxious at this moment, but this time, Chi Kayun was not angry and instead let out a heavy sigh. Chi Kayun shook her head and said, "Shulan, you're right. I just need to find time to calm down and read more books. It's too restless." Li Shulan was taken aback. What does Chi Kayun mean by this? Have you softened? Not like her personality. At this moment, Chi Kayun changed her tone and said, "Shulan, did you watch today's news?" Li Shulan has been watching TV dramas since she had dinner in the morning. She doesn't have time to watch any news. She shook her head and said, "I've been reading books and haven't read any news." "What's wrong? What's the big deal?" Chi Kayun looked at Li Shulan and let out a heavy sigh, saying, "Ah, Shulan, I thought you knew all about it, but I didn't expect you didn't even know about it." Chi Kayun's words aroused Li Shulan's curiosity and she said, "Kayun, what's going on? Can you stop showing off?" Chi Kayun said, "I thought you knew and came here to comfort you, but I didn't expect you to know yet. I'm a bit unsure now whether or not I should tell you." "Let's not tell you. You'll have to know sooner or later. Let's say it. It's a big blow to you." Chi Kayun shook her head while speaking, looking at Li Shulan with some pity. At this moment, Li Shulan was puzzled and urged, "Kayun, what's going on? Don't you know me yet? I have a calm and fearless big heart." Chi Kayun sighed again and said, "Since you've said that, I'll tell you. It's your son's business." Li Shulan was momentarily taken aback, then her heart tightened. What happened to her son? "A few days ago, I had a video with my son and he said everything was fine. He said it would be his daughter-in-law's birthday in a few days and he wanted to give her a surprise." Chi Kayun clicked twice, took out a newspaper from her bag, and handed it to Li Shulan. "Shulan, I won't say anything. You can take a look yourself," she said. Li Shulan quickly took the newspaper in confusion and looked at it. When she saw the content of the newspaper, Li Shulan felt her eyes turn black, followed by a wave of dizziness. Domestic violence. Excessive gambling. Eat soft rice. Netizens call for the ban on Yang Bei. Yang Bei, get out of the entertainment industry. Li Shulan looked at the newspaper while holding her forehead with her left hand, her face turning pale. There must be a mistake. Xiao Bei is not such a person. He looks at his wife more important than at my mother. How could he possibly engage in domestic violence? He hasn't played cards since he was young, so how could he possibly gamble excessively? Li Shulan speaks with a tremolo. Yang Lan, who was watching the excitement next to her, was immediately startled and ran over to help Li Shulan. Mom, are you okay? As Yang Lan supported Li Shulan, she glanced at the newspaper and was immediately startled when she saw the headline. Chi Kiyun shook her head and said, "Ah, Shulan, reading history books can increase wisdom, but your wisdom must be used on the right path. If you focus on educating Yang Bei, will he go astray? Ah, Yang Bei, it's a pity. He was so beautiful and likable when he was a child." Li Shulan put down the newspaper and coldly glanced at Chi Kiyun. "You go out." Chi Kiyun hurriedly said, "Shulan." Li Shulan slammed the newspaper onto the coffee table and said, "Chi Kiyun, you're just here to see me joke, aren't you?" The two of them have been arguing for a lifetime, and everyone knows each other. She even said that Chi Kiyun was so strange and lowered her head today. It turned out that she didn't hold back any good intentions at all. Chi Kiyun said, "Li Shulan, don't let your dog bite LV Dongbin. I'm kind-hearted, you." Li Shulan raised the newspaper in her hand and was about to hit it. Chi Kiyun immediately stood up and loudly said, "Shulan, I know you're in a bad mood right now. I don't have the same opinion as you." Li Shulan angrily grabbed most of the thread-bound books on the coffee table and was about to throw them away. Chi Kiyun was startled and said to Yang Lan, "Lan, you're taking care of your mother at home. I'll go back first." After speaking, Chi Kiyun picked up her bag and quickly ran out. Bang! Closing the door, Chi Kiyun turned her head to look at the Yang family and snorted, "I said Yang Bei was so good when he was a child. How did he grow up like this?" It turns out he inherited the crazy woman Li Shulan. After tidying up her clothes, Chi Kiyun slowly left. Yang family, after Chi Kiyun's arch-nemesis left, Li Shulan leaned on the sofa and started crying. Yang Lan was at a loss for a moment. Looking at the news just now, is sister-in-law going to divorce her brother? Although she doesn't like this sister-in-law who looks down on their family, from her brother's perspective, she must be very sad now. She knows her brother too well. He is someone who even avoids killing chickens during the Chinese New Year. How could he possibly commit domestic violence? She would believe it if she were subjected to domestic violence. Li Shulan looked at her stunned daughter Yang Lan and said, "What are you staring at? Call your dad, it's already time and he's still working." Yang Lan let out a sigh and was about to turn around to get her phone when she was stopped by her mother. "Wait a minute, call your brother first. I want to ask this bastard if he has ever done these things." Yang Lan looked at her tearful mother and said to herself, "Are you worried about my brother?" However, Yang Lan is also worried. Is brother okay in the capital? End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Renting a house. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Renting a house. Beijing, DC area, in a 5-star hotel. Yang Bei has just had lunch and is sitting on the sofa browsing through rental information in Beijing. At first glance, Yang Bei suddenly burst into bitter laughter. He truly deserves to be the capital of China, and the housing prices are really expensive. The cheapest one with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room costs 6,000 to 7,000 yuan, and many homeowners pay rent for 1 or 6 months at a time according to the news. Yang Bei calculated, it seems that he doesn't have enough money on him. Yang Bei secretly said, if only he had seen this information earlier, he might not have chosen to leave the house with a clean body. Yang Bei joked optimistically about himself. Suddenly, the phone rang and the note was "Mom" calling. Yang Bei was taken aback. In his previous life, he was an orphan and grew up with his grandmother. He had no memories of his parents in his mind. Now suddenly facing his mother's call, Yang Bei, who has been calm since time travel, suddenly feels a bit nervous. Take a light breath and Yang Bei presses the connect button. "Hello, Mom," Yang Bei shouted. Immediately after, the angry voice of her mother Li Shulan came through the phone. "Yang Bei, what's going on in the news?" Yang Bei was taken aback for a moment and immediately understood why his mother was so angry. He quickly explained, "Mom, don't believe all the news online about my family's violence and excessive gambling. They are all rumors and pure slander." Mom's tone was no longer so serious, and she continued to ask, "No wind, no waves. Flies don't bite seamless eggs. You didn't do anything wrong. Why did those news spread rumors about you and not about others?" Upon hearing this, Yang Bei knew that his mother had once again broken the habit of being a teacher for decades. He said, "Mom, this era is different from before. Nowadays, online media can create anything for the sake of traffic. Besides, Mom, how did you educate me since I was young, and what kind of person do you still know about me?" After Yang Bei explained this, Li Shulan breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Stinky kid, if I knew you were gambling and domestic violence outside, I would definitely break your leg." This time, Yang Bei could hear that his mother's voice was trembling, as if she had cried. Yang Bei pursed his lips. Although his mother was criticizing him, he could feel love from her words. This feeling, which he used to only envy and look at others, can he now enjoy it too? "I know, Mom," Yang Bei whispered. Mom continued, "By the way, I'm asking you, what's going on with you and Yaya? What's the news in the newspaper that Yaya wants to divorce you?" Yang Beidao said, "Yes, Mom, isn't she a top-tier celebrity? She wants to divorce me, and those media outlets started splashing dirty water on me just to gain popularity." Of course, Yang Bei knows it's not like that, but for the sake of Enleo Ma's heart, he can only say so for now. Mom said, "Why did she suddenly want to divorce you? You're all so old, why are you still acting so recklessly?" Yang Beidao said, "My personality doesn't match." Mom said, "Do you have a personality mismatch? You've been married for 3 years before you realize it." After a pause, Mom continued to ask, "Do you agree?" Yang Bei nodded and said, "I agree. I'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce in 3 days." After Yang Bei finished speaking, his mother fell into silence. Li Shulan knows how much her son likes Shia. If it were just a small fight between husband and wife, her son would definitely not agree to divorce. But now that he has agreed to divorce, there must be irreconcilable conflicts between them. "Son, how have you been these days?" Mom suddenly changed the topic. Yang Bei almost missed his mother's brain circuit. He was just talking about divorce, but in the blink of an eye, he talked about how he was doing. But on second thought, Yang Bei understood his mother's thoughts and said, "Mom, I've been doing pretty well these days, staying at a friend's house." After a pause, Yang Bei said, "Mom, I left the house with a clean body, and I voluntarily requested it." Mom said, "Well, if you leave the house with a clean body, then you can leave the house with a clean body. Your mother can still afford to support you. By the way, I don't trust you being alone in the capital. I'll let your father accompany you." Upon hearing this, Yang Bei hurriedly said, "Mom, don't come. I live at a friend's house and everything is fine. What did you ask my dad to do? Don't come, don't come." Mom saw Yang Bei's resolute refusal and had to say, "How much money do you still have now?" Yang Bei thought about the less than 20,000 yuan in his card and said, "Mom, I still have less than 500,000 yuan in my card." Mom snorted, "Speak human language." Yang Bei coughed lightly and said, there are still 198,000 left. Mom said, is that enough? Yang Bei said, enough, 200,000 yuan is not enough for me to spend. Mom hummed and said, okay, if you don't have enough money, just tell your family. Yang Bei quickly agreed. I talked to my mom about my situation for a while before hanging up the phone. After hanging up the phone, Yang Bei suddenly realized that talking to his mother was not so nervous and uncomfortable. On the contrary, Yang Bei still feels that the feeling of being cared for rather than fighting alone is quite good. Jinqiu Community. Gaomang's home. As soon as Gaomang opened the door and walked in, he saw his mother Gao Xiufen standing in front of the living room wall with a photo hanging. Gaomang put down his bag and asked, Mom, where did you take this picture? On the entire wall, there are photos of Gao Xiufen, mostly taken during her annual travels. There are also some photos of her dancing elderly dance with the old men and women in the community, as well as photos of her colleagues. Gao Xiufen turned her head to look at her daughter and smiled, in the morning, your aunt and I represented our community and competed in elderly dance with the neighboring community. TSK, your mother and I, as the main force, led our community to win the first prize with great results. This is our champion photo together. Gaomang pursed his lips and said, Mom, I heard from Aunt's son downstairs that 6 communities participated in the competition, and 5 communities won first prizes. After hanging up the photo, Gao Xiufen clapped her hands and said, there's still a community that hasn't won first prize. Gaomang shook his head and sat on the sofa, asking, Mom, what do you have for lunch today? Gao Xiufen waved her hand and said, Girl, I have something to tell you. Gaomang brushed his phone and said, what's going on? Gao Xiufen sat next to Gaomang and said, it's like this. I want to rent out the house across from our house. Gaomang shifted his gaze from his phone to his mother and said, rent out the house. Why did you suddenly rent out the house? Gaomang has 2 houses in his family, both on the same floor, with doors facing each other. Initially, the Jinqiu community had just been built and the house could not be sold. My father made a decision to benefit Gaomang and his daughter for a lifetime by using all our savings to buy 2 houses on the same floor. A set of Gaomang and Gao Xiufen are currently living, while the one opposite is used as a storage room, and some old furniture is also thrown inside. Gao Xiufen said, Mang, let me tell you, this house can't be left empty all the time. It needs to be inhabited and popular. And when we were taking a photo this morning, I heard from your aunt's son that Xiaowang upstairs has gone abroad. He rents out the house for over 7,000 yuan per month. Our house is a bit old, don't be so high, there must be someone coming to rent it for 5 or 6,000 yuan. Gaomang frowned and said, are you short of money? I'll give it to you. Gao Xiufen raised her hand and nodded at Gaomang's forehead, you child, now that you've earned some money, you're starting to drift. Have you forgotten about the hard times we had before? Gaomang rubbed the place where his mother had just ordered and said helplessly, okay, we'll all listen to you. If you want to rent it, let's rent it. Gao Xiufen smiled and said, I'll let you know. It's not about discussing with you. I've already planned everything. After I get this rent, I'll go on a trip to Hangzhou. As the saying goes, there is heaven above and Suzhou and Hangzhou below. This trip to Hangzhou will definitely be good. Gaomang let out a sigh and said, Mom, you just returned from your trip to Sichuan province last month. Why are you traveling again so soon? For his mother's personality, Gaomang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Gao Xiufen lifted her chin and said, take a walk while you're not old. In the afternoon, Yang Bei started looking for a house. Without being in charge, one may not know that firewood and rice are expensive. In the previous life, Yang Bei had everything arranged wherever he went, and several first-tier cities had properties. But now that he started renting a house, Yang Bei realized it wasn't easy. The housing prices in the capital are too high for him to afford to rent. Some houses have acceptable rent, but they are too cramped and have poor lighting. What made Yang Bei laugh and cry the most was that one of the landlords, an old lady, actually recognized Yang Bei and cursed him as a beast, not a human, and heartless, while waving a kitchen knife and driving him out. Recalling his identity as an artist in the entertainment industry, Yang Bei immediately shook his head. Even outsiders in the industry saw him in this way, indicating that he may have become a street mouse in the industry. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Aunt Gao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Aunt Gao. The next day, in the morning, Yang Bei is still looking for a house. If he can't find another house, will he have to spend another 1,200 to stay for one more day? In the hotel room, Yang Bei frowned and swiped the rental information on his phone. Yesterday, I asked several companies on my phone and went to see them on site, but none of them reached an agreement. He had high demands and no money, which was quite contradictory. Suddenly, Yang Bei saw a newly released rental news. It was not far from his place, and the rent was not high. It was 5,500 yuan per month, with 1 deposit and 3 payments. Moreover, from the photos posted, it seemed that the house was pretty good. Contact person: Ms. Gao. Phone: 010xxxxxxxx. Yang Bei dials the phone, and a woman's voice comes from the phone. Listen to the voice. She should be about the same age as his mother. Hello, is that Ms. Gao? Yes, who are you? I saw online that you have a house for rent, right? Yes, I want to rent a house here. Do you want to rent a house? Well, I'm interested. Do you think this is okay? If you have time now, I'll go to the site and take a look at the house. Okay, I'll be right here. Just call me when you arrive. Good. After hanging up the phone, Yang Bei began to tidy up and went to see the house. The Beijing subway is quite convenient. Yang Bei checked the map and found that the hotel is only 3 stops away from Jinqiu community. Stepping out of the hotel, there is a subway station next to it. Yang Bei is wearing sunglasses and a mask. He is currently very popular, and if he is recognized, there is a chance that someone will smash him with an egg. Yesterday, the landlady old lady chased him with a kitchen knife, and now he has to sneak around while traveling. This won't work, Yang Bei thought to himself. Although he doesn't want to hang out in the entertainment industry anymore, his ultimate goal is to live a peaceful life. If this continues, not to mention a peaceful life, he won't be able to live anywhere. I don't know if Gaomang had any results from investigating this matter yesterday, and I haven't contacted him yet. Yang Bei shook his head. There was a bit of suspense on Gaomang's side. Even if evidence was really found, would Gaomang offend She Ya for his sake? He has seen many deceitful people in the entertainment industry, and even if Gaomang is his agent, he cannot believe it too much. I got on the subway, it's not rush hour now, and there are still many vacant seats. Yang Bei found a seat to sit down. The haze in the capital is severe, and there are also many fully armed people like him on the subway, which is not very eye-catching. However, when Yang Bei saw the celebrity posters posted on the subway, his brow furrowed. In his carriage, there are posters of 3 celebrities, but of these 3, only one is a Chinese celebrity, and the other 2 are foreign superstars. The entertainment industry in China started relatively late, and even compared to countries such as Europe, America, Japan, and South Korea, it is still much worse. When Yang Bei traveled across the globe, the entertainment industry in China had already developed very well. Many domestic celebrities had great influence in the United States, Japan, and South Korea. Although they were not as influential as Hollywood overall, they were also a major entertainment center in the world. But the Chinese entertainment industry in this world is still on the side of being invaded by culture. The infiltration of Chinese culture by Western countries is very serious. In the memory of Yang Bei, many Chinese teenagers have done many things that are heartbreaking to parents and even society because of their crazy pursuit of these foreign celebrities. While Yang Bei was thinking about something, the subway signal sounded, indicating that he was about to arrive at the station. Yang Bei stood up and walked to the door of the carriage to wait. The car door opened and Yang Bei walked out of the subway station with the crowd getting off. Navigating on the map, Yang Bei didn't go far when he saw a small community with a big sign hanging at the entrance. Jinqiu Community. According to the rental information, Yang Bei found the room 202 in Unit 1 of Building 14. Yang Bei looked at the floors and found that there were 2 residents on each floor, with a door-to-door layout. Yang Bei walked to the door and raised his hand to knock. No one responded. Yang Bei increased some strength. At this moment, the door of the resident behind suddenly opened, and a woman in her 50s exposed her head. Yang Bei was about to explain to someone when the woman spoke up first, "Are you here to rent a house?" Yang Bei was taken aback and nodded, "I am." The woman looked at Yang Bei and then waved to him, "Then come in and talk." Yang Bei turned his head to look at the house behind him, then at the woman, and walked over in confusion. Did the landlord ask her neighbors to help rent a house? As soon as Yang Bei entered the house, his gaze was caught by a large photo hanging on the wall. Gao Xiufen pointed to the sofa and said, "Xiaoyang, right?" Yang Bei nodded and said, "Yes." Gao Xiufen said, "My surname is Gao, which is the landlord who wants to rent your house." Yang Bei was taken aback and pointed to the house across from him, saying, "The one across from you." Gao Xiufen nodded and said, "That's also my house." Yang Bei is amazed, holding 2 houses near the city center in the capital, worth millions. On the coffee table, there was a pot of brewed tea water. Gao Xiufen poured it on Yang Bei and looked at him, saying, "Xiaoyang, where are you from?" Gao Xiufen scrutinized Yang Bei, who had already taken off his mask and sunglasses. Her high appearance is pleasing to the eye, and this statement is true. Looking at Yang Bei now, Gao Xiufen is in a good mood. After Yang Bei entered the house, he took off his sunglasses and mask, feeling a bit scared. The experience of the landlord's old lady chasing him with a kitchen knife yesterday is still vivid in his mind, and I don't know what Ms. Gao will think of him today. However, to Yang Bei's relief, Ms. Gao didn't seem to recognize him, but it is understandable that he wasn't a big star after all. The sudden increase in popularity this time was mainly due to She Ya. Even if he was walking on the street before, not many people could recognize him. Moreover, not everyone pays attention to news headlines. It is normal for an aunt like Ms. Gao to be uninterested in entertainment news. Yang Bei smiled and said, "Aunt Gao, I'm from Hangzhou." Upon hearing this, Gao Xiufen immediately became happy and looked even more at Yang Bei. "Yo, are you from Hangzhou?" I was planning to travel to Hangzhou in a few days, but I didn't expect to meet a local person," she said. Yang Bei smiled. "Young man, are you married?" Gao Xiufen continued to ask. Upon hearing this, Yang Bei was taken aback. How could he even inquire about his marital status? However, previously he looked at some information left by tenants online, and there were also landlords who didn't like tenants being too messy. There were also landlords who asked about their marriage status. Yang Bei thought for a moment and said, "I'm married." Upon hearing that Yang Bei was married, Gao Xiufen's face immediately changed and she sighed. She thought to herself that this young man was good and wanted to introduce her to her. Unexpectedly, she got married. Her daughter Gaomang will be 30 years old in just 2 years, and she is quite old. Most of the girls in the community who are the same age as her daughter are married and have children. Her own daughter is good, and she is outstanding in both appearance and ability, but she just doesn't talk about boyfriends. Gao Xiufen is also worried about her daughter. Yang Bei sighed when he saw Gao Xiufen. He thought it was because Gao Xiufen was not satisfied with him living with his family. After hesitating for a moment, he explained, "Aunt Gao, it's like this. I live alone, I'll get divorced soon. For this house, Yang Bei still values it very much. After all, this morning is the last time. If he can't find a house again, he will have to stay in the hotel for another day, and it will be gone for over 1,000 yuan. Upon hearing that Yang Bei was about to divorce, Gao Xiufen suddenly came to her senses. She didn't think her daughter had a chance. Even if this young man left a good impression on her, she couldn't let her daughter marry a second marriage. However, for the elderly, their curiosity is quite strong. When Yang Bei said they were about to divorce, their curiosity was immediately aroused and they said, "Are we going to divorce?" "Why?" Yang Bei said, "Auntie, this is breaking the sand pot and asking the whole story." She shook her head and said, "Our relationship is not harmonious, so we divorced." After a pause, Yang Bei thought about the more than 19,000 yuan left in his card. He was afraid that it might not be enough later, so he said, "She took care of the house, car, and other things at home, so this divorce will leave me alone." After listening for a moment, Gao Xiufen looked at Yang Bei and said, "Did you leave the house clean?" Yang Bei nodded and was about to say that he had no money on him now. Gao Xiufen suddenly said, "Young man, have you had an affair?" Yang Bei almost didn't take a sip of tea and quickly waved his hand, saying, "Auntie, I definitely haven't had an affair, and I haven't done anything wrong to my wife. This is a big matter that concerns his reputation, Yang Bei cannot be careless." Gao Xiufen let out a sigh and looked at Yang Bei's appearance, which didn't seem like she was lying. She said, "That's your lover." "What kind of lover is that?" Yang Bei couldn't help but laugh and cry. "Why is this aunt gossiping so much?" Watching Yang Bei remain silent, Gao Xiufen understood a bit and sighed, saying, "Young man, be open-minded. Life has been decades, and who can't go through some storms? However, there aren't many kind-hearted men like you now. If I were your mother, I would definitely not let you leave the house alone. It's not our fault, it's the other party's fault. This way, divorce can also gain more benefits." Yang Bei smiled and didn't speak. The matter was not that simple. He went online without any evidence to say that She Ya had an affair and was hooked up with her first love. Does anyone believe him online? Even if photos of two people meeting are posted, there will still be people questioning his ulterior motives, right? After all, it's him who is being shouted and beaten online now. In order to prevent Aunt Gao from gossiping further, Yang Bei changed the topic and asked if it was possible to go and see the house first. Gao Xiufen laughed and said, "I've been talking to you all the time and forgot about the main matter. Let's go and take a look at the house. Let me tell you, yesterday, Auntie, I cleaned up all day and I'm not willing to rent out the house. Charging you 5,500 is definitely a cheap deal for you." Upon hearing this, Yang Bei's face stiffened slightly. He remembered that Aunt Gao mentioned on the rental website that she was paying a deposit of 1 to 3, which meant he had to pay a one-time rent of 22,000 yuan. He doesn't have so much money on him now. Yang Bei was thinking about something and followed Gao Xiufen to the opposite house for a walk. This is a 2-bedroom, 1-living-room house, which is quite clean inside. There are already placed beds in both the master bedroom and the second bedroom. Gao Xiufen said, "Xiao Yang, these bedding sheets are still new and have been sitting here all along. I sunbathed them yesterday. If you want to use your own, I'll put these bedding sheets away." Yang Bei shook his head and said with a smile, "Thank you, Auntie. I was just thinking about buying a blanket, so I don't need to buy it now." Gao Xiufen nodded and said, "What quilt do you want to buy? Just use it from Auntie, and you don't have to spend money. It's not like I said you're young people. Spending money is like flowing water. Take my girl for example. It costs over 1,000 to go out and have a meal. Can you tell me how much you can buy with just over 1,000? As she spoke, Gao Xiufen turned to Yang Bei and said, "Last time, my family's Mang and a few good friends went to dinner. Guess how much money the 4 of them spent?" Yang Bei looked at Gao Xiufen's 5 outstretched fingers and said, 5,000. Gao Xiufen snorted, 50,000. I heard they opened 3 bottles of some kind of wine, 1 bottle is 12,000. What kind of wine is this? It's not as expensive as jade juice. Listening to Aunt Gao's nagging, Yang Bei didn't feel any discomfort. In the original owner's memory, his mother often nagged him like this. Perhaps older people love to nag, and they never stop talking. Next, Gao Xiufen took Yang Bei to take a look at the living room. There was a TV in the living room, and Gao Xiufen said, "This TV can still be used, but the remote control is not very useful. You can try changing the battery later." However, young people usually use computers, and computers that can watch TV can watch anything. My daughter never watches TV. Yang Bei nodded, and it was evident that Aunt Gao had a good relationship with her daughter, always talking about her when she opened or closed her mouth. Next, I looked at the kitchen, which covers an area of about 10 square meters. Xiao Yang, because no one has lived in this house for so many years, there are no pots, pans, ladles, or anything else. After you move in, you can go to the supermarket to buy a pot. Aunt Bowl and Chopsticks has many more at home, and I will bring you a few. Yang Bei nodded. Aunt Gao is quite nice, and he feels embarrassed to tell the truth later. Basically, it was Gao Xiufen who was talking incessantly to introduce Yang Bei, who just nodded and occasionally interjected. After strolling through the entire house, Gao Xiufen asked Yang Bei, "Are you still satisfied with Xiao Yang?" Yang Bei nodded and said, "Satisfied." After a pause, he added, "Very good." Upon hearing Yang Bei's words, Gao Xiufen smiled happily and said, "It's not that auntie is boasting. Our environment is good, transportation is convenient, and the lowest rent is around 7,000 yuan. Auntie is in a hurry to travel to Hangzhou this time and wants to rent out the house early, so she offered such a low price. You're really good at picking up feces." Yang Bei smiled, didn't speak, and touched the wallet in his pocket. The two of them returned to the house opposite where Gao Xiufen lived. Gao Xiufen said, "Xiao Yang, you are also satisfied with this house, and the price is not high, so we have decided on it." End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Finally found you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Finally found you. After Gao Xiufen finished speaking, Yang Bei paused and then slowly shook his head. Gao Xiufen was taken aback and widened her eyes, saying, "Xiao Yang, are you not satisfied?" Gao Xiufen felt a bit unbelievable. To be honest, the price she offered was really not high, and it could even be said that compared to the prices offered by other landlords around her, she was very low. She had inquired with her friends who rented houses around her before. Yang Bei sighed and looked at Gao Xiufen, saying, "Aunt Gao, I won't hide it from you either. I am very satisfied with the house." Gao Xiufen nodded. Yang Bei continued, "But I don't have enough money on me right now." Gao Xiufen hesitated for a moment and said, "Not enough money." Yang Bei chuckled and said, "Didn't I tell you before? I left the house with a net income and didn't have much money on me, only 19,000 yuan. Gao Xiufen parted her fingers and calculated that Yang Bei needed 22,000 yuan for one sexual intercourse, and 19,000 yuan was not enough. Gao Xiufen frowned and said, "Xiao Yang, why didn't you tell me earlier? I've been introducing you for a while, so you can't afford to rent it." Yang Bei smiled bitterly and said, "Aunt Gao, do you think it's possible to make it a little cheaper? When I get rich in the future, I will definitely double the amount I pay you back." Gao Xiufen sneered, "What you're saying is really beautiful. Alright, then how much rent is suitable for a month?" After thinking for a moment, Yang Bei extended 4 fingers and said, "Do you think 4,005 would be suitable?" Gao Xiufen's face darkened and she patted the table. "Xiao Yang, the rent is 4,005 yuan per month. You can go to the suburbs to inquire, but there are no prices like this." Yang Bei sighed. He only had so much money on him. If he had known this, he wouldn't have said anything about leaving the house clean yesterday. Even if She Ya disliked him again, she would definitely have scored tens of thousands of yuan for him. Gao Xiufen looked at Yang Bei, who was somewhat gloomy, snorted and pointed to the door, saying, "You go, I won't rent the house anymore." Yang Bei opened his mouth, but in the end, he didn't say anything. A 2-bedroom, 1-living-room house, costing 4,500 yuan per month, was indeed a bit fanciful. Yang Bei didn't even know what to say. He looked at Aunt Gao and apologized, "I'm sorry, Aunt Gao, it took up your time. So, I'll leave first." After Yang Bei finished speaking, he stood up and left. As he walked out of Gao Xiufen's house, Yang Bei shook his head. It was hard for a single penny to defeat a heroic man. He didn't feel much about this before, but now he deeply understands the 3 flavors. He now doubts whether his simple goal of living a leisurely new life is too idealistic. Inside the room, Gao Xiufen was initially a bit angry, but looking at Yang Bei's somewhat low mood, her anger dissipated a bit. Her wife had an affair, and she chose to leave the house clean. She ran out of money and was already miserable enough. And just now, Yang Bei sincerely apologized to her, and Gao Xiufen is not someone who insists on money. She really doesn't have much anger in her heart. Finally, watching Yang Bei's somewhat desolate figure leave, Gao Xiufen sighed lightly, stood up, and walked towards the door. Because it was on the 2nd floor, Yang Bei had no intention of taking the elevator and was about to walk down the stairs when suddenly there was a sound of door opening from behind. Immediately after, Gao Xiufen's voice came over, "Xiao Yang, wait a moment." Yang Bei was taken aback and turned to look at Gao Xiufen. "Aunt Gao." With a cold face, Gao Xiufen said to Yang Bei, "Xiao Yang, Aunt Gao, I'm not an unreasonable person either. Well, in the first quarter, I charged you 4,000 yuan in rent per month, but from the next quarter onwards, it still costs 5,000 yuan. Do you think you can accept it? If you can accept it, then we'll sign the contract. If you don't accept it, then I've already done my best." After hearing this, Yang Bei was immediately overjoyed and nodded, saying, "Aunt Gao, I agree. When I earn money, I will definitely double the compensation for you." Gao Xiufen chuckled twice and pushed open the door, saying, "All right, you come in." Next, Gao Xiufen took out the prepared contract and signed it with Yang Bei. When asked about Gao Xiufen's bank card, Yang Bei immediately transferred a total of 18,000 yuan to Gao Xiufen using his phone. After receiving Yang Bei's transfer, Gao Xiufen opened her phone and glanced at the message sent by the bank. She nodded before looking at Yang Bei again and said, "Xiao Yang, do you still have money now?" Yang Bei nodded and said, "There are still 1,000 yuan left." Gao Xiufen snorted and doubted whether Yang Bei really only had 1,000 yuan left. She said, "Xiao Yang, it's not your aunt who told you. In the future, when you do things, you should be willing to spend money and not be too stingy. If you're like this, you won't be able to find a wife in the future. Which girl would be willing to marry you?" Yang Bei nodded with a bitter smile. He hasn't divorced yet, and Aunt Gao said he won't be able to find a wife in the future. Next, Gao Xiufen gave Yang Bei a key, which was the key to the house across from him. After talking for a while, Yang Bei finally left. "I went to the hotel first to retrieve the things that were left there, and also checked out. Then I called Sun Fengqing again and asked him to come and help. He was busy this afternoon." Sun Fengqing and Li Yingxin arrived together. Yang Bei originally planned to go home and pick up some things, but he was afraid of encountering She Ya's embarrassment, so he decided to spend money to buy all the daily necessities in the supermarket. Aunt Gao has small items such as bowls and chopsticks at home, and when she arrived, she also instructed not to buy them. She will directly deliver them to Yang Bei. However, Yang Bei still bought 2 small pots to use temporarily. When passing by the clothing area, Yang Bei saw some clothes on sale and picked out the cheapest casual clothes to buy one, spending 330 yuan. In the afternoon, all sorts of people bought a small car. Yang Bei originally had around 2,000 yuan left, but now it's less than 500 yuan. This time, Yang Bei was really going to run out of money. He smiled bitterly in his heart, and now he finally understood that sentence. Money is not everything, but without money, it is absolutely impossible. Brother, you have also found this house. Let's go to the bar to celebrate tonight, which can also be considered your housewarming joy. Sun Fengqing smiled, holding 2 large plastic bags. Li Yingxin held the packaging bag of the casual clothes bought by Yang Bei and nodded, saying, "Yes, yes, brother. Now that you have a new house, it means your life has a new beginning and you must celebrate." Yang Bei thought of his empty wallet and said with a smile, "In advance, I can say I'm penniless now. Unless you treat me, I won't go." Li Yingxin pushed Sun Fengqing and said, "Did you hear that? Before, every time I went out to eat, it was my brother's treat. Now it's your turn to show off." Sun Fengqing was pushed unsteadily and chuckled, "Let me arrange that night. Huh, see if your arrangement can satisfy me and my brother." Ha ha ha. 3 people carrying big and small bags in a good mood walked in the Jinxiu community. P.S. Yang Bei. Finally found you, my dear cheap house. End of this chapter.